Good afternoon. Welcome. My name's Mandel. I'm the president of Williams College, and it's my great honor to welcome all of you here to campus today, as well as to introduce my colleagues, Leticia, the vice president for institutional equity and diversity, and Marlene Sandstrom, the dean of the college. And the three of us just have a few remarks here today to welcome you to the campus and to help orient you to the year's experience ahead. As many of you know, I'm relatively new to Williams College myself. I've only been here a year. I'm happy to report that this is a wonderful place, full of exceptional faculty and committed alumni, dedicated staff, first-class facilities, and of course, as you know, most importantly, exceptional students. And of course, all in beautiful Williamstown. You know it's like this all year round, of course. We just rolled out one of the beautiful days here for you today. So to all the parents in the room, which is most of you, or relatives and grandparents, how many for you is this the first child you're leaving at college? Nice, wow, very nice. And how many of you are going to be empty nesters as a result of this drop-off? Wow. Lots of emotions in the room on all sides, I know. I can empathize. I took my own son to college last year. He just finished his first year, as have I. We both enter our sophomore years. I don't think it gets any easier to drop a kid off for this adventure, even as we're really excited about all that is before them. I've been an educator for over 20 years, and for the longest time, at this time of the year when I was younger, I most identified with the students who were just starting out on their educational adventures, alive to all the possibilities in front of them, and I was always a little jealous that they had this wonderful experience ahead of them in this first day of classes, you know, the new outfits, the excitement of meeting new people. That was really where I was. But as I get older and as my own children age, I increasingly identify with you, the parents, saying goodbye, feeling excited about the opportunities in front of your children, but also nervous and maybe a little overprotective, maybe even a little suspicious about the people who will be watching out for these folks that you've gotten to this stage. And maybe wondering if they'll get the nurturing and support they need to flourish far away from their parents' eyes. So my primary message to you today is to rest assured that your children, your students, are in wonderful hands. This is an institution that's full, of course, of resources, but here I don't mean the buildings, the structures, the programs, or the aid, although those is certainly among the best that you can find in this country. I mean the people. This is a place filled with world-class faculty that is dedicated to modeling excellence through their own path-breaking research and scholarship, while also being deeply dedicated to providing a rigorous education for the students who make their way to this campus. We have a wealth of academic and advising support programs established to guide students through the curriculum and overseen by a talented and committed staff supporting a myriad of both academic and non-academic programs that are available to your students while they're here. And of course, most importantly, and I really am not just saying this because they're yours, a remarkable student body. And this is a dynamic cocktail that comes together in really remarkable ways through the core structural commitment of this school to the student-teacher bond. Indeed, in many ways, I think Williams' success can be explained in the iconic metaphor that people always use to discuss this school, which is the story of Mark Hopkins on the log. Some of you may have heard this story in tours when you came through here. Mark Hopkins was the president for a very long time in the 19th century, but the story comes from the subsequent period under the presidency of James Garfield, who's the only president who was also a Williams graduate. And at an alumni event where other alumni were complaining, which alumni never do, that the facilities weren't quite up to snuff, Garfield stood up and said that the greatest college is not linked to its facilities, but rather to one in which Mark Hopkins is at one end of the log and it's a student at the other. In other words, if the student-faculty bond remains at the center of what we do, we will have a great institution. And Williams has really been built on this legacy. One of its great strengths is the 7-to-1 student-to-faculty ratio, and year after year of students' responses to their education here backs this up. And I can point you to every year the school newspaper, The Record, does a student survey satisfaction poll, and students are surveyed year after year. It's twice a year actually, on what they like best. How do they feel about the food and the dorms and the social activities and the faculty and the president. And I'm happy to report, and I really am happy to report, that the thing that comes in the highest every year is the faculty, at something like an 85 to 89% high satisfaction rate. They like the faculty more than they like me, just saying. But seriously, it is a wonderful testament, I think, to the reality that of what goes on here in the classroom and outside the classroom with student learning in this place where faculty are so very committed to students, and I'm very proud to be affiliated with an institution with this educational mission at its core, and with a faculty that's so committed to it. It is not; they're not alone, though, and it is very important. This story of Mark Hopkins and the log leaves out the fact that we are an institution full of equally committed staff who have dedicated their professional lives also to working very closely with students, and who are also engaged in the core mission of the institution, which is to promote student thriving while they're here so that they can get the most out of this experience. So we will encourage the students who are here to get to know faculty and staff, and you can certainly help us do that by encouraging them to take advantage of those opportunities. But I'm also not worried, because there is so much evidence that students right from the beginning of their pathways here do get to know faculty, and by the time they graduate, know a great number who can write letters of recommendation for them, who have mentored them, who are guiding them on the next phase of their life. And so it's through these relationships with faculty and staff that students will be introduced to a liberal arts education. Now, it's a premise of this education that we are introducing students to both the breadth of human knowledge on the one hand, while also encouraging them to begin to develop depth in one or two areas. Now, in some ways, both of these are absurd conceits, if you think about it. We introduce students to the breadth of human knowledge through 32 courses over 4 years. How long do you think it would take? How many years would you have to be in school, and how many courses would you have to take to learn the breadth of human knowledge? Let's all go back to school. Right, so we don't really introduce them we introduce them to the breadth of human knowledge, and that is one half of the conceit, through the requirements that encourage students to think across all of the divisions. And that's about 20 of their courses, maybe a little bit more. Then they take another 9 or 10 in an area of their major. That is the depth. And that also is, in some ways, rather superficial, right? If you think about whatever you've gone on to do in life and how long it's taken you to become a specialist in something, taking 10 courses in that thing does not make you a specialist in any way, shape, or form. It's really the beginning of learning what it would take to be an expert in a field. It's not learning how to be an expert in the field, but it's introducing to you to what it would take to really require deep knowledge. And so the combined impact of the conceit of breadth and depth is that what we hope we're teaching first and foremost is humility in the face of knowledge. That we are teaching our students first and foremost how little they know, and second of all, and so therefore to be humble in the face of their own ignorance. And second of all, how to begin to have the skills to become a lifelong learner, so that when they want to become an expert, they begin to understand what it will take to be so, and not to claim expertise before they can get there. This really is a humbling experience. In my own college life, I went to Oberlin College and I was an English major, and I had to take a course on Milton, which I didn't want to take, but I had to take a pre-modern course, and it was the only one that fit in my schedule. I didn't know anything about Milton. I spent 13 weeks reading nothing but Milton and criticism of Milton, and I had this really powerful moment at the end of the semester when I realized that after all these weeks of reading, I had read this much of what Milton had ever written and even less of what had been written about Milton, that I knew nothing about. I knew less about Milton in some ways after that experience, because what I had become exposed to was how little I knew, but also what it would take to really be able to write a footnote in a book about Milton and say something with some kind of expertise and depth. That is what I want for your children and offspring and relatives. I want them to learn what they don't know and give them the power to begin to fill in those gaps. Why? Because it is only in becoming lifelong learners that they will begin to get the complex skills they need to be successful at whatever they're going to do next. They are likely going to go on to do work in fields that very likely haven't even been invented yet. And so to have the capacity to learn what is necessary after leaving here, not while they're here, is the gift that we can give them. But there are other goals too. Through this process, through the breadth and depth, we introduce them to a series of competencies which they will take with them no matter where they go. I am a big proponent and say publicly all the time that the most powerful pre-professional degree is the liberal arts degree. And that is because it trains students to write and to research and to read and analyze evidence and to problem solve and to analyze data and to communicate. And with these skills, they can do anything. And that is what we offer through their pathway here. And while they do that, we teach them to follow their instincts, to test their assumptions, to challenge themselves, to go above and beyond what they thought was possible, and so importantly, to back up their claims with evidence. These are really the core skills. We often say in liberal arts and higher education that we teach critical thinking, and I personally don't say that that's what we teach because of how hard it is, in fact, to be a critical thinker. I think to be a critical thinker, you actually have to be an expert. You have to know something deeply to be able to challenge it. But again, you can learn the skills that will begin to teach you to become a critical thinker by learning these other competencies that take you there. So we really hope that you will join them in this journey and encourage them to embrace the independence that Williams offers them to strike out on their own. We encourage you to challenge them to take risks. I do hope that you'll be surprised by the results. I sincerely hope that you'll be pleased by the results. But sometimes you may also be frustrated that your children opt not to take your advice about this or that. And we hope you'll be accepting and understanding, as hard as that this may sometimes be, as they strike out on their own. If they don't surprise you, they won't have been fully adventurous, which means they won't have taken complete advantage of all of this amazing institution has to offer them. So I've spent some time just now talking a little bit about learning in the classroom, but also a word about the tremendous learning at Williams that happens outside the classroom. And one of the greatest sources of education for the learning outside the classroom at this institution is what the students will learn from each other. This is an exceptionally diverse campus in every dimension: race, ethnicity, nationality, class, sexual orientation. The result means that the students, simply by living here and engaging in our dining halls and in our classrooms and on the athletic fields and in the theaters and in the museums, wherever they go, they are learning from each other all the time about the different ways it is to be human in the world. Everyone who has come to this campus deserves to be here and will strive and thrive here, and everyone benefits from the tremendous diversity that makes up this campus. But it of course can also have its challenges, its misunderstandings, its assumptions, poor communication, and tremendously robust conversations that begin to take place as people who are different start to get to know each other. Don't be misled by what you've read in the news. Campuses are, in fact, among the places that have the most robust conversations across difference that occur in this country at this time. It's not surprising that it doesn't always go well and that we sometimes end up in the news, but that is actually a product of its success, that people are trying to talk to each other, and sometimes as they engage in those conversations, saying things that don't quite compute, and as they learn what it means to engage across the many things that both divide and join them. So Williams provides an opportunity for us to think about how we speak to each other and also how we listen. And listening, I would posit, is among the most important skills that we can learn in communication as we continue to learn to express our ideas in the most effective ways possible. We definitely aspire to be a campus that supports the widest possible exchange of ideas and supports people from every background to feel supported and expressing themselves in a time where expressing oneself is so very important. And that's what makes it so wonderful to work and study here. We have a tremendous range of resources. You're going to hear more about them as the afternoon goes forward. So I won't take up a lot of time with a conversation about that right now, but I do want to encourage you to encourage your children to ask for help when they need it. Our most successful students are not necessarily the students who came in with the highest grades or SAT scores. Our most successful students are students who know how to ask for help when they need it. That is a key skill in life, and that kind of self-advocacy takes our community far when students know how to use it. So please help them do that when it's necessary. What else can you do? Please encourage the young men and women you're leaving here to take leaps, to reach out to faculty, to have fun, to take care of themselves. And I want to end with a word of advice for you, the parents, as you leave. I have been giving this advice at the end of remarks like this for many years now, and I hope you take it to heart. So when my mother dropped me off a very long time ago at college, she engaged in the long drive back home from Ohio to Princeton, New Jersey, parked the car, went up to my former bedroom, and played the music box that she used to play for me when I was a child before I went to bed. My advice to you, don't do that. Go to the movies. Thank you so much. Welcome, and I will turn you over to Leticia.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Maude. Welcome parents, guardians, families, and friends of the wonderful students who are joining us. It's a privilege to stand here before you this afternoon as Vice President for Institutional Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. Almost 25 years ago, in 1995, my parents brought me to Williamstown and sat where you're sitting today, not necessarily here, but in this room, but they were here. And I'm an extremely proud graduate of the class of 1999 of this institution. To be clear, Williams was great then, but it's pretty phenomenal now. And so when I was offered the opportunity to return to the college to serve in my current role, I didn't hesitate to do so. I yearn to give back to this institution because Williams is truly a place where everyone, regardless of who they are, can live, learn, and thrive. And as Vice President, I strategically work with community constituents off and on campus, including students, faculty, staff, and alumni, to name a few, to ensure a diverse, equitable, and inclusive campus. I help guide efforts to conceptualize, define, assess, nurture, and cultivate diversity as an institutional and educational resource and priority. Every person in the Office of Institutional Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion works to ensure that all students, regardless of race, ethnicity, nationality, gender or gender identity, religion, sexual orientation, economic or ability status, have meaningful access to all of the college's resources. And we engage the campus as we aspire to support robust, healthy, and effective communication. I'll give you two examples of how we do our work and support constituents on campus. First, the Davis Center does work in partnership with students, faculty, staff, alumni, and off-campus communities, and they strive to facilitate collaboration, dialogue, and explorations for social change to create an inclusive environment for learning, living, and community. Next, and second, the Office of Special Academic Programs aims to ensure all students thrive academically at Williams and beyond through opportunities and programs such as research fellowships that work to eradicate racial and socioeconomic disparities in higher education. So have no doubt that if your child needs anything here, our doors are wide open. In the most wonderful Williams way, all offices here, including the Dean of the College's office, the Vice President for Campus Life's office, and many others, work closely and diligently to ensure that our students have an optimal experience, so that throughout their tenure here, they engage in critical discourse, thoughtful discourse, and respectful discourse. And there's no question that some of the discourse will engage and touch on issues of diversity, equity, and inclusion. And let me take a step back to where I started, and I said that Williams is phenomenal today. And I said that because we're intentional about what we do. It doesn't mean that we have figured everything out, or much out, but we do ask questions. We engage the members of our community, and we work hard to make sure that everyone is included. So today, as we develop programs and coordinate curricular, co-curricular, and extracurricular activities to be more diverse and inclusive, we have his story, her story, and their story as our powerful guides. You may know that during the first 175 years plus of its existence, there were no women on this campus. When women arrived on campus in the 1970s, there were very few of them, and there were very few students of color as well. But today, nearly 50 years later, Williams embraces strategic efforts to ensure its classrooms and campus are diverse, with students, faculty, and staff of different races, ethnicities, religions, genders, to name a few. Consider that the fact that Williams today has approximately 8% international students, 40 US students of color, nearly half the students identify as men and half as women, and about 16% are the first in their families to attend college, and 50% receive financial aid. And you just heard from our first woman president, Maud Mandel. So there's no question that Williams' commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion is staunch. As I close, I add that I do not assume that we all share the same understanding and definition of diversity. When I say diversity, know that Williams strives for identity diversity, what one may actually look like, and cognitive diversity, how one may think. At Williams, we believe that diversity and exceptional do go hand in hand, so a great school requires exceptional people, perspectives, and problem solving. And a great school benefits from including people with diverse perspectives. Differences in identity, race, gender, gender identity, ethnicity, religion, physical ability, sexual orientation, economic status, you can continue on, all correlate with cognitive diversity. Now this week, as the first year class joins this community, it comes to life. The people behind the papers, the essays, and the applications are here. Their presence will be seen and felt across campus and in the surrounding community. We know that each member of this class is unique and brings with them diversity in thought and being, and for that we're extremely grateful. Once again, welcome to Williams College. I hope you enjoy your stay, albeit brief, and I'll hand you over to my colleague, Marlene Sandstrom, who is Dean of the College. Thank you for your time.
Hello, everyone. I'd like to add my welcome and my congratulations and to thank you for sending us your wonderful sons and daughters. We are really thrilled that they're here with us. As we speak right now, your young people are meeting their deans for the first time, and after that, they're going to settle into their entries and begin the process of getting to know each other. And as part of that process, they're going to have the opportunity to get to know people who are different in all kinds of ways from those that they grew up with. And as both Maud and Leticia said, that is really a core component of the magic of this place. We are just incredibly excited about the ways that this group of young people are going to grow and learn with each other over the next 4 years. We also know that students come to us with a real richness of character that comes from a deep connection to their families and their home communities. And Williams is a better place because of the ways that your family's experiences and your perspectives and your values and your traditions are going to contribute to the community that your students build here. So a piece of you is going to be part of the community here at Williams, and we really want to thank you for that. We know this is an incredibly exciting time for families. It can also be a challenging one. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about some of the resources and supports that might be on your mind. If there's anything that I raise that you have questions about, or things I don't raise that you have questions about, I'm happy to stick around and talk to you about those afterward. We have a really robust website with all kinds of information about resources and support. And there's also one very easy port of entry, which is an email address. I'm going to point to our Director of Family and Parent Programs, Rob White. families@williams.edu. It's a one-stop shop. And it's a way to ask a question and get a personal and quick response. Rob White is actually the wizard behind the curtain of that email address, and he probably can answer your question. He has a huge amount of expertise about Williams, and if he can't, he knows just who to funnel that question to get you the answer that you're looking for. So first, let me just say a few words about healthcare on campus. The college has a fully staffed student health and wellness center that includes nurses, nurse practitioners, health educators, physicians, and mental health professionals. Visits to all of those folks are free and unlimited. And Williams is unusual in that respect. We are able to provide students the care that they need without counting sessions or setting limits. The health center has hours on the weekends as well as during the week, and students can arrive as drop-ins or with appointments. There's also an on-call number for after-hours health issues, and we coordinate care with local specialists or hospitals if the need arises. If you have particular concerns about your child with either a new or an ongoing health issue, you are welcome while you're here to stop by the health center and talk with somebody. You're also welcome to call or contact them from home, and certainly encourage your students to sit down and make an introductory appointment. The staff there would be happy to talk to them and make sure they're getting started from a position of strength. Second, I want to say a word about safety on campus. Our campus safety and security department is open 24 hours a day, every day of the year. We can't say that about any other office on campus, but it is true for campus safety. Our officers maintain the security of the campus, and they also make it their business to really get to know our students. Every year, before I speak to you, I call the director of campus safety, who's there in the back, Dave Boyer, who might wave his hand, and I ask him, I say, Dave, how many phone calls has campus safety already gotten from these incoming new first-year students? This year breaks the record over the past few years. He told me that 36 students have already contacted campus safety since they arrived. Why do you think they're calling? Locked out of their rooms. Dave told me that last year he tallied up the total number of calls for being locked out of your room, 1,500. So we're off to a good start. We'll keep on pace. We'll probably hit or surpass that number. It's actually a great thing because it's a really great way for our students to get to know the campus safety officers in a relatively low-stress environment. We are really blessed to have a wonderful team in campus safety. They make it a priority to be friendly and approachable and to get to know the students by name. Many of our officers have children of their own, many of whom have gone to college, some of whom have gone here to Williams, so they are very familiar with what it's like to be away from home and on a campus for the first time. They are a wonderful resource to our students. They are safety officers for sure, but they are also educators, and that's the approach that they take in their interactions with students. Now, your students have only been here for a few hours, but they probably already know one very important fact, which is that campus safety is always the right first call with any kind of trouble. That's a message that they're going to hear over and over again during orientation. The dispatchers at Campus Safety are the nexus of the Williams universe, and they can reach everyone on campus. They can reach the on-call dean, they can reach health services, they can reach anyone that a student might need at any time, again, 24/7. This is true for our students. That's the right first number to call. I also want to let you know that that's the right number for you to use. If you're ever worried because you have a communication from your student or no communication from your student and you're really worried that they're in any kind of crisis, call Campus Safety. They would be happy to talk to you, help you make contact with your student, make sure that they're okay. So Campus Safety number is not just for the students, it's for you as well. I also want to mention another key resource on campus, and it may seem like a counterintuitive one. That is academic resources. Of course, your students are here because they have excelled in the academic realm. They've been incredibly successful, and some may have been successful without ever needing to reach out for any kind of support or resources. At Williams, that will shift. It turns out that academic resources are something that nearly every Williams student uses at some point over their 4 years. They do it in different ways and for all different kinds of reasons. It might be a study skills training workshop. We offer workshops on all kinds of things ranging from time management, procrastination, writer's block, how to speak up in class. They might use the writing workshop or the math science resource center, which supports introductory level math and science courses. They may be looking for accessibility accommodations. They may be looking for advice about fellowship opportunities or study away opportunities, just to name a few of the academic resources on campus. Seeking them out is what strong students do to get even stronger. So I do encourage you to encourage your students, even if it's something that they're not used to or didn't do in high school, to reach out early and often for the academic resources that are available. It's one thing that upperclassmen say repeatedly when they're asked, what would you do differently as a first-year student knowing what you know now? And they often say, I wish I had taken advantage of the academic resources earlier. Also, please encourage your kids to make use of one of the most valuable resources we have on campus, and that is our faculty. If you hear from your sons or daughters that they're struggling with a course, or they're losing confidence in their abilities, or they're feeling overwhelmed by their workload, the first thing you should do is tell them that that's completely normal. We wouldn't be doing our job as a college if we weren't helping students stretch a little bit beyond their comfort zone. So reassure them that if they have those feelings, they are in good company with every other student on campus. But the second thing to point out to them that is a great moment to reach out to their professors. I'm a faculty member in the psychology department, so I can say this with confidence. Our faculty members chose Williams because they really wanted to be at an institution that puts undergraduates at the very center of its universe. So on top of their passion for their discipline and for their scholarship, our faculty are truly passionate about their students. That's why they're here at Williams. And when students have the instinct to avoid their professors, which they often do when they feel like things aren't going well, that's the time to encourage them to reach out to their faculty members. Encourage them to do the opposite of their instincts. Reach out to faculty who will be happy to talk through their experiences. So I've spoken a little bit about health and safety and academic resources, and there is one common thread that's woven through all of them, and that has to do with supporting students as they assume an increasingly higher level of personal responsibility for themselves. Responsibility for setting goals, for making decisions, for deciding what kind of resources to seek out and to receive. A major aim of the next 4 years is to help your students become more independent on all of those fronts. And all of our offices and programs are designed to help students do that and to support that development. The Health Center is a great example. As adults, we know that figuring out how to negotiate the healthcare system can be really daunting, and you may be concerned about how your children are going to manage that on their own without your help. The health center knows that their primary consumers are emerging young adults who don't have a lot of experience with the healthcare system, and part of their mission is to really help students learn how to do healthcare. So students can drop in if they're not sure if they're sick enough to be seen, which is something I hear a lot from students. I don't feel great, but I don't know if I need to be seen. They can call, they can drop in and just figure out whether or not they need to be seen or not. The health center works really hard to help students become experts in their own health by giving them the tools they need to start managing their own long-term wellness. Another example of trying to help students develop their own personal initiative has to do with talking to faculty members. So I work in the dean's office with 5 fantastic deans, and often students come in to talk about an academic crisis. They haven't done well on a paper or an exam, they can't meet a deadline, and they're feeling really overwhelmed. We're really glad that they've come to the dean's office, and the very first thing we're going to do is help them figure out how to make a connection on their own with that faculty member. That might mean that we sit in our office with them as they think about how to draft an email or make a call. Maybe they'll do it from our office. Maybe we'll role play with them about what that conversation might look like. But the goal is to get your students more comfortable reaching out and making those connections on their own. Another piece of the independence and sense of agency that we're trying to bolster has to do with your young people's right to privacy and confidentiality. And this one's a big one. As college students, they now have legal ownership over their academic and personal records. And I know that can be a really big transition for families who have been involved in every nitty and gritty bit of their lives since they were babies. Now that they're college students, we won't be able to call you when they come to the health center for care, or they visit a dean about an academic issue or a roommate situation, or they work with somebody in campus safety to straighten out a little bit of trouble. Giving students ownership of their own experiences is a really important part of the transition to college life. I see worried faces. I just dropped my oldest son at college for the first time on Friday. I had a worried face as well. I want to reassure you that if your student is in any kind of major crisis, if they're in danger in any way of a health or other kind of crisis, we absolutely will contact you and call you. Better yet, we'll encourage your students to do that for themselves. But for the bumps in the road that don't reach that level, we're going to be helping students to make their own decisions about what information to share and when they want to reach for advice. We always encourage students to think about how to involve parents in that picture. But grappling with the choices is really important. It is part of the process of your sons and daughters learning to make reasoned decisions and to step up as responsible adults. Your students will absolutely hit some rough patches, and they will make some missteps. We know 36 of them already did so by locking themselves out of their room. I hope that they're going to make more mistakes, because figuring out how to move on from a mistake, that transition from recognizing that you screwed up to that next moment where you're problem solving about what to do next, that is something that they're going to be repeating over and over again in different ways and in different places throughout their personal and their professional lives. And as long as their choices are becoming increasingly thoughtful and reasoned and ethical and community-minded over time, then we're all moving in the right direction. Let me leave you with a thought from one of my favorite poets, Mary Oliver, who sadly died earlier this year. She gives an incredibly simple set of instructions for how to live a life. And I think, when I read it, that it's such a perfect description of how to make the most of Williams. It's really short, 3 instructions. 1, pay attention. Be astonished. Tell about it. One of the most important things we can do for these students is to remind them of this. Pay attention, soak it up, get immersed in things, build a community around shared wonder and intellectual passion, and of course, don't forget to call your parents once in a while and tell them about it, which is something I'll remind them of when I talk to them all tomorrow. Thank you for bringing all your phenomenal young people into our lives. We are very excited to be able to start this new chapter with them. We are going to stick around for a few minutes in case folks have questions for any of us. I also want to introduce a couple other people who are here who might stick around and answer some questions. So you've already met Rob White, who's the Director of Parent and Family Programs. He's right here. Steve Klass is our Vice President of Student Life. He oversees the residential life system, so housing. He oversees health, campus safety, our Center for Learning in Action, which is our experiential program, and a few other things that I'm not mentioning, and so he'd be happy to answer those questions. We also have Valerie Bailey Fisher, chaplain to the college here, who would be happy to answer any questions that you have. So feel free to come, find us. We'll stick around to answer any questions that you have, and of course, we're always available to answer questions after you leave campus as well. Good luck to all of you.